Three major updates for you in this video. First, President Trump spoke with NATO and Zelensky ahead of his meeting with Vladimir Putin on Friday. Secondly, CNN is having a meltdown because President Trump wants to remove DEI from the Smithsonian Museum. And third, the Democrat socialist candidate running for New York City mayor is now attacking President Trump. And all these stories will show you what both sides are saying and give you the bottom line.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, European leaders, they're all holding a video conference with President Trump today. So there is a goal here, and that is to share objectives going into the high-stakes summit in Alaska that is happening Friday, making sure the United States and Ukraine are on the same page.
The president sharing on Truth Social that he will be speaking to European leaders in a short while. They're great people who want to see a deal done.
Okay, so as you heard, there's a call taking place, NATO, Zelensky, President Trump, because this meeting between him and Putin on Friday obviously is a big one. And Democrats are doing what they do best, including mainstream media, which is to suggest the idea that not only is President Trump not prepared, but that President Trump is going to sell Ukraine out and bend the knee to Putin. I mean, that's just me really getting to the bottom line of it. And obviously, if you support Trump, you're looking at the results he's been able to deliver in his first 6 months as president, 11 peace deals. So I don't know why they believe this is the smart way to report on this story, but that's who they are. Now, here's another example, MSDNC echoing the same level of doubt. Take a look.
Well, I think President Trump believes that, as he has often said, his best advisor is himself. And so I think he will listen today, and he will certainly hear that both Zelensky and the European leaders and the UK and Canada believe that there should be a ceasefire first, and then a discussion of whether there is a deal. And President Zelensky has said time and time again, as have we as a U.S. government, no decision about Ukraine without Ukraine, because we're talking about a sovereign country, which was the whole issue at the beginning when Russia invaded illegally and horrifically a sovereign country and tried to take territory. As Matt pointed out, they don't control the territory that they want. And there is great concern because there are lots of Ukrainians, of course, who live in these parts of Ukraine. And what will any land swap mean for their future, for their lives? What are all the other issues that need to be decided? So I know President Trump has wisely lowered expectations here, that this is now just going to be a listening session, but it's not clear what that means. And Zelensky and the Europeans are quite concerned that he will make decisions and then put the onus on Zelensky to say no, which would put Zelensky in a very bad position.
Okay, so as I told you right there at the end, it's the idea that President Trump will throw Ukraine under the bus, okay? Now, just think about the type of ego that President Trump has. Do you honestly think he's going to throw them under the bus and be known as a president who did that in history? I don't think so, okay? I think President Trump is very creative, intelligent, flexible. I don't think you get to where he's gotten in life if you're not that way. So I would find that suggestion from MSNBC to be unfounded. Now, that's obviously my own personal opinion. But listen, let's get to why this even matters, okay? It matters because people who criticize Trump, they still think this is 2016. Right? They're continuing to ignore his accomplishments in the first 6 months that has proven that he knows how to negotiate. He's getting results, okay? Still early into his presidency, by the way. And let's remind everybody, these are the same people who want to continue to use our tax dollars to fund an endless war that is continuing to see death every single day on both sides. So can we just bring it to an end already? Now, obviously, we're America. We really can't control that. That's going to be between Ukraine and Russia.
We had a very good call. He was on the call. President Zelensky was on the call. I would rate it a 10, very, very friendly. I know the leaders because I was at NATO, as you know. I took it from 2% to 5%, 2% that wasn't paid, 5% that is paid, which is trillions of dollars in defense capability. No, it was always going to be, I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that, I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky. I'm going to call President Zelensky, and then I'll call, probably in that order, the leaders. There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. Again, this is Biden's war. This isn't my war. He got us into this thing, and it should have never happened. This war would have never happened if I were president. But it is what it is, and I'm here to fix it, and I'm here to stop 6,000, 7,000 people last week. 7,213 people last week were killed, mostly soldiers. But missiles being lobbed into towns don't exactly help either, but mostly soldiers. And Ukrainian and Russian, they're not American soldiers, but if we can save a lot of lives, it would be a great thing. I've stopped 5 wars in the last 6 months.
Will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences, yes.
All right, so allow me to share a quick message from today's sponsor, Bearskin. Yes, it is summertime right now, but let's not forget, winter will come, and the last thing you need is a hoodie that sucks. It's a great time to do your winter shopping, which is why most people are smart by locking in their 60% off with Bearskin. What is Bearskin exactly? It's what I'm wearing right now. It's a hoodie that is built like a tank, 340 GSM micro fleece, 10 pockets with a clean, rugged fit that looks awesome. As you guys can see, I look great, right? I mean, come on. Plus, it zips right into a heavy storm rain jacket to become 100% waterproof when you need it. So when it turns cold, wet, or rainy, you're not scrambling last minute. Plus, you're going to get free U.S. shipping, fast delivery, and your winter gear already locked in. So get your Bearskin today by texting my name, Devori, to 36912. Again, text my name, Devori, to 36912 to get 60% off. They'll send you a link so you could check out on your own time. Once again, text my name, Devori, to 36912. Okay, so that's President Trump at the Kennedy Center earlier today, making his position known, which really makes me think of a few things. One, clearly the president is focusing on saving lives, which is what you would want from a president, right? I didn't hear that same sentiment from Democrats or Joe Biden. Number two, what's also troubling, though, is that even though President Trump wants to end this war, there are people in Congress who don't. They would happily continue to use our tax dollars to keep this war going. Now, here's a clip from Zelensky earlier who, he maintains the same attitude, which is Vladimir Putin can never be trusted. He's bluffing. You can't take anything he says seriously, and we need to continue to fight.
Told President Trump and all our European allies, Putin is bluffing. He's trying to push before the Alaska meeting. On all directions of our front line, Russia wants to occupy the whole of Ukraine. This is his wish. And Putin is bluffing that sanctions is nothing and they don't work. In fact, sanctions are hitting Russian war economy hard. It's true. Russia has a lot of weapons, many times over than we have. Artillery, let's say, for three times more. But they sustaining 3 times more losses. And I said about it to our European friends, to President Trump, that Putin definitely does not want peace. He wants to occupy Ukraine. And we all understand that.
And to get to the bottom line here, if it was Putin's way, the entire country of Ukraine would not exist. It would be Russia owned. Okay. If Zelensky had his way, of course, Ukraine would be a sovereign country and would be part of NATO. And he would continue to find ways to continue to get paid because we know he's the greatest salesman in the world. That's the reality that we're dealing with. So let's just hope that President Trump has some tricks up his sleeve to bring this all to a close. Now, let's go to our next story. And this is once again, as I continue to do every single day, highlight how the media's obsession of President Trump's decision-making continues to ruin their credibility. This is on the Smithsonian Museum. According to reports, President Trump is looking to make some modifications, and CNN doesn't like it. Take a listen.
The White House announcing plans to conduct what it says is a comprehensive internal review of the Smithsonian Institution's exhibits, as well as all materials. Now, this marks the latest move by the Trump administration to impose the president's views on cultural and historical institutions, as well as an effort to purge materials that they say are focused on diversity. The Smithsonian Institution is the overarching organization that spans 21 of the nation's public museums, as well as the National Zoo. They had about 17 million visitors last year, and this will mark a first phase targeting 8 museums. That includes the National Museum of African American History and Culture, Air and Space, the National History Museum, the National Gallery, amongst others. And they're going to be looking at all current and upcoming exhibitions. They're going to be assessing the tone and historical framing of those exhibits, as well as staff manuals, job descriptions, organizational charts. They say, well, they will be taking a look at all internal communications about how work is selected. And there will also be an effort, they say, to replace what they describe as divisive language on things like placards and other public-facing materials with what they say will be unifying descriptions. Now, a letter from the White House to the Smithsonian secretary says, quote, this initiative aims to ensure alignment with the president's directive to celebrate American exceptionalism, remove divisive or partisan narratives, and restore confidence in our shared cultural institutions. The Smithsonian responding in their own statement, saying that they're reviewing that letter and planned to collaborate, quote, constructively with the White House.
Okay, so I didn't hear anything wrong there. I think every single presidency in history, they have not only reviewed museums, but overall policies that has an impact on culture. All we have to do is look no further than the Biden administration, where everything was about the color of your skin and watering down language, right? And trying to change the meaning of words. So what President Trump is doing here is not disturbing to me, but if you're Tim Tampon Walls, he says if you're trying to erase history, you're on the wrong side of it. So my only question to Tim Walls, I bet you support it when they change all the names of the military installations. All because, we don't want to remember that part of history. Right? See, it's interesting how Democrats behave that way. Hey, let's take down those statues because, it's the bad part of our history. But I thought you guys don't like it when people are erasing history. So which one is it exactly? Well, the meltdown continues.
I learned in history class that this is how authoritarians operate. They take over the arts, they take over the culture, they take over the museums. And so this to me is a further effort for Trump to put his stamp on America, and not just for 4 years, but forever. This is another effort for him the museums are supposed to tell the story of America by Americans, and museums over the course of history get better at telling the story and involve more voices in those stories, which is why the Smithsonian opened the National African American History Museum to tell the Black story of America. Clearly, he does not like the fact that these stories are diverse and tell bigger stories. And like authoritarians do, he wants to tell it from his perspective.
Yeah, well, the same could be said for Joe Biden, that he's an authoritarian leader, because as I already stated, they wanted to change, and they did change the name of military installations because they were named after Confederate generals. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't find it offensive that a military installation would be named after a Confederate general, someone who's a part of American history. Why would you get upset about that? And if anything, if you were smart, you would do what Pete Hegseth did. We'll just find someone with the same last name. That's even better. Right? That's a happy medium. But no. They took it way too far and named it after these other people who were not a part of the Confederate Army. No, thank you. Same thing with DEI. They crammed it down people's throats. Okay. Talking about authoritarian. And what ended up happening is they damaged the Black image even more because of DEI, if you really think about it. So, no, I'm not hearing their take that, President Trump is authoritarian and he's doing damage by making these types of decisions.
Most Americans never thought that the President of the United States would have their hand in Smithsonian exhibits, and he is doing that right now. And I can't think of a single good reason why.
Yeah, the last time we sort of talked about the changing of historical exhibits was when all these angry mobs all over the country tore down historical statues all over the place, and the people who seemed to be angriest about the Smithsonian review were cheering that on. So I agree with you. Occasionally, parts of our
they said?
society do look
Put
into
those statues in
history.
museums.
And so no, they
That's
didn't
what a
look
lot of
like
these
they
statues
didn't look like
We're talking
they didn't
about
look like they
learning
were putting them in
entirety
museums when they
of-
were tying
we-
ropes around them and dragging them down.
I'm
You may be
not-
misremembering how it happened, but that's what happened.
I'm not here to justify people tearing things down and this and that. But I just think it is grand that right at this table, I can't hear from both of you. You can't even just say politicians should not be editing our history and trying to change our history. That's what
I don't
they're
believe
doing.
they're changing our history. I don't believe that that's
It
what
is
they're doing.
what he has been trying to do.
All right, we got to leave it.
All right, so that's Scott Jennings giving the congressman some common sense. And listen, it's very clear who's already done exactly what they're accusing President Trump of doing. That is Democrats. They're the ones who have done these things already. And of course, the congressman is not going to look himself in the mirror and criticize his own party for doing just that. So now we're on to the next story. And this really comes as no surprise because I knew sooner or later he would do this. And the he I'm talking about is Zohran Mamdani. This is the guy running for New York City mayor. He is now on an anti-Trump speaking tour. And we've got to react to it because, of course, he's out there spreading lies once again. Take a look.
Zohran Mamdani is hitting Staten Island today, one of the 5 boroughs, day 3 of his 5-borough anti-Trump tour. Yesterday, he picked up on his campaign's message for this week of hitting back at President Trump.
Donald Trump, who, as has been stated, has recently ushered through legislation, horrific legislation, that will cut more than 40% of housing assistance in our funding. A man who ran on cheaper groceries that is now cutting SNAP.
Now, what he fails to mention, just like the rest of them, when they say President Trump is cutting Medicare, he's cutting SNAP. Why don't you explain to the people who's getting cut off from Medicare and SNAP? And that would be illegal aliens. Okay. And no matter how many times they try to tell us that they're not receiving those benefits, they are, because if they were not, there'd be no reason why some of these states are going bankrupt because of these programs. Okay. So again, it's just another lie that's being pushed and people will eat it up because it just sounds logically true. If you do your research, you find out, oh, wait a minute, this is not true whatsoever. Okay. Here's the other thing where he acknowledges what this whole tour is about. Take a look.
This is a tour against the Trump administration's attack on New York City voters. But I continue to say that if Donald Trump wants to pick up the phone and say that he wants to deliver on the cheaper groceries that he ran on, I'm willing to work with him on that. It just can never be a partnership at the expense of the people of the city.
Now, pay attention to what he is doing, along with some Democrats who have been very effective at communicating. They're trying to focus on grocery prices. Now, we just showed you in yesterday's video that grocery prices have not increased. They've been the same. According to the numbers, according to the inflation report, there has been no change there. But they believe that message resonates with their constituents and potential voters. I'm not too sure that's going to be their bread and butter. I'd understand why they go that route. But here's the problem when you're talking about grocery prices. This guy wants to have government and taxpayer funded grocery stores. And what's interesting about his policy stance on that is we have proof already in America that shows it doesn't work. All we have to do is look at this next clip that happened in Kansas City. Take a look.
For months, the store hasn't fully been stocked. Still, person after person comes to buy groceries.
I thank the previous operator for the years they put into that, as well as their predecessor. And now we'll try to do all we can to make sure that this works.
Mayor Quinton Lucas is disappointed. He met with the store operator 2 weeks ago for hours trying to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I know there are different challenges to how a grocery store can operate. Part of that challenge is that the city certainly has been happy to be a partner, but there's always a limit to what we will invest as well.
It comes down to money. The city owns the building and has invested nearly $29 million in the store. Still, the Sunfresh was losing money.
All of a sudden, you roll down here this morning and they're gone, and they're saying they're not coming back.
All neighbors know is there's no food here now, and they wish that wasn't the case.
I'd like to know what could be done, maybe to bring it back.
In Kansas City, Brian Johnson, KMBC 9 News.
So anybody with a brain knows that was never going to work because it's business, entrepreneurship. The principles never change. I don't care if you're being funded by the government, you've got grants coming in, or you are bootstrapped. If the money doesn't make sense, the money doesn't make sense. It's the bottom line to it. And the problem with government-funded grocery stores is me and you will have to pay for it. Instead of a grocery store that is private, it goes out of business. It goes out of business. The taxpayer is not paying for that. See, they don't look at it that way, okay? They despise capitalism. And what they don't understand is capitalism that has given them the opportunity to do what they're doing right now. It's like freedom of speech, right? It's our constitution, it's America. It's the freedoms we have that have given people to be this delusional. But this is what he stands for. This is what he believes. But at the same time, he's complaining about grocery prices and trying to blame President Trump. Give me a break. Now, that's not the only policy where he's going wrong. He wants to raise taxes for people in New York City if you're rich. And we know how that will turn out as well. Take a look.
The rich don't care. The successful don't care. But take a look. They do move when they're being pushed. For example, the proposal is a 2% tax of income over the year. The top city rate is 5.9%. So add on to that. The city and state, 16.8%. Federal, state, and city rate, 53.8%. So basically, if you're seeing these numbers, private company or public, what are you going to do?
You're going to move to Florida. You're going to move to Texas. You're going to move somewhere else. The reality is no one wants to pay that much. And the reality that's really sad for actual New Yorkers and middle-class New Yorkers is that the wealthiest people, they can move very easily. They can work from wherever wherever they want.
Especially
They've
since
seen
the
that.
pandemic.
Ever since the pandemic, people realize they don't have to be in an office. They don't have to do these kinds of things. They will move. They are the vast majority of the tax base that funds all of these subsidy programs in New York City. Anyway, you lose 10, 15,000 of those ultra-high net worth individuals. This city is in serious trouble, and no amount of free stuff being promised is going to actually help it. It's a shame, but I think he's going to be great, Mandani. If he wins, he's going to be great for the rest of the country in the future, because New York City's going to go through some really hard times, and people are going to stop playing with this ridiculous experiment of communism and socialism that has not worked anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, see, the problem with Democrats and what they don't get when they complain about taxes is that majority of the small business owners in America are part of the working class. They're not billionaires. They're not rich. So it's interesting that they rage against the rich and they want to raise taxes on corporations. But what they don't understand, mom and pop, they own a corporation according to the IRS. So again, if billionaires leave, which they may not, because, for them, it's really more of, can they still conduct business? That will really be the sticking point. I actually believe it will just trickle down and people in the middle class will leave. That's exactly what happened in California. Now, what's more troubling is updated news from Polymarket that now has Mr. Zoran Mondani at an 82% chance of becoming the next mayor of New York City. Now, there's still a lot of time to go. But if this holds and he wins, you got to pray for New York. No question about it. All right, so let's hear from you guys in the comment section below to these stories today. What's your take on Mr. Mondani running for New York City mayor? What do you think his chances are when it comes to winning? And do you buy his policies? Clearly, they don't work, as we just showed you in this video from Kansas City. But let me know what you guys think about him. Secondly, what's your take on President Trump meeting with Putin on Friday? Do you think he has a chance to finally bring this war to an end? Or do you believe it's going to continue to drag on? And Democrats are going to continue to try to use this to score political points against the president? And finally, how do you feel about the White House looking at Smithsonian Museum and others to rid it of DEI and woke historical facts? Let me know how you guys feel about everything we discussed today in the comment section below. Okay, so in our next video, it's another month and more positive news about the economy, which is a huge win for President Trump and a major loss for the Democrat Party and the experts. If you missed out on that story and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on it because it's coming up right now.